Let's go to Washington. Gerald Feierstein is former U.S. ambassador to Yemen. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Pleasure to be with you.
These talks brokered by Oman that are taking place, what are your hopes?
Well, I think that what we have are a number of parallel tracks that are going on. Of course, the headline a few weeks ago was the Saudi-Iranian rapprochement that was facilitated by the Chinese. The Omanis have been helping to mediate between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis really since at least the end of last year, and reported in January that they were making progress. That seems to be accelerating. There seems to be much more movement towards hopefully some understanding between the Saudis and the Houthis on the way forward. And then the third track is and has to be a Yemen track. In other words, an agreement between the Houthis and the internationally recognized government of Rashad al-Alimi. And we heard from Hans Grunberg earlier in March that they were hoping there was going to be a large-scale prisoner release over these coming days, as well as perhaps a return to political negotiations after the Eid. And that is, in fact, the critical step that has to take place in order to end this conflict.
A couple of years back, we had those talks in Sweden. A lot of diplomatic capital was invested in those. They came to naught mostly. What's different this time?
Well, it's a very good question, and the simple answer is it's not entirely clear. The hope, of course, is if the Iranians have now seen that it's in their interest to help encourage the Houthis to come to a political resolution, that might shift the balance towards negotiations, towards some kind of an agreement.
But that brings us back to the third point that you made, which is that there has to be agreement between the people of Yemen themselves. How much of this is a proxy war, and how much of it is, just a genuine civil war between Yemenis?
I think it's by and large a civil conflict. This started really as a result of the Arab Spring, the National Dialogue Conference. There was a great deal of effort among the Yemenis to try to negotiate their differences, to come up with a new way forward. That unfortunately broke down by a decision by the Houthis, along with Ali Abdullah Saleh, the former president, to turn to violence, to try to seize power. And that was in 2014, and we've been in this situation ever since. That really is the genesis of where we are right now. The coalition intervention, which stabilized the situation and prevented the Houthis from completely taking control of Yemen, has complicated the issue and made it more difficult for the Yemenis to resolve these differences. But it is, at the end of the day, a Yemeni civil conflict.
If you look at the sequence of events the past 6 months, and we've seen first the Saudis and the Qataris bury the hatchet. We saw as well the Emiratis tone down. Now the rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Is this all part of the logical sequence of what's going on in Yemen, or again, is this something completely different?
Well, I think it's fundamentally an agreement among all of the players in the region that they needed to reduce tensions, that they needed to lower the temperature in the Gulf. Things were beginning to look very uncertain. I think that there was a lot of concern that we were headed to a conflict in the region, and the parties recognized that they would all suffer the consequences of an open war, and therefore they have been working to step back from the brink, if you will, and to try to find ways to move forward. Turkey has also been a part of this dialogue. We've also seen some moves among the various states in the region to try to resolve the issues with Syria. And perhaps to allow Syria to return to the Arab fold. And so there is this general sense that they don't want to focus on these conflicts anymore. Each of these states has a domestic, political, and economic challenge, and they want to be able to really concentrate on that.
If there's one individual that probably looms large in all this, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. Has he grown weary of the war, and if so, why?
Well, I think it's exactly this point that this conflict, the continuation of this conflict, is costing the Saudi treasury billions and billions of dollars annually, and it's taking him away from achieving what is his highest priority, which is the Vision 2030 economic and social reorientation of Saudi Arabia. He recognizes that the key for the stability of his rule, of his father's rule, of the Al Saud, is really to address the needs of young Saudis. And as long as this conflict is going on, it is going to be a complication and an obstacle for him to achieve those objectives. So he wants out. He's wanted out for a number of years, but now with this resolution, or at least toning down of conflict with Iran, there are opportunities now to try to end Saudi involvement and to move forward domestically.
Wanting out means accepting perhaps that the Houthis take over?
Well, I would hope that wouldn't be the outcome. The Saudis have said all along that they're not opposed to having the Houthis play a role in the Yemen government. But I think that it's important that there be some kind of broad-based way forward. The majority of Yemenis, as far as I can tell, do not want to live under a Houthi theocracy. They would like to see the basic elements of Yemeni Republican government continue, and that's not what the Houthis stand for. But the Houthis certainly will have a voice, they'll certainly have a say in the way things go forward.
Gerald Feierstein, former U.S. ambassador to Yemen, thank you for speaking with us on France 24.
It's been a pleasure.